Hamlet observes to Horatio that there are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in our philosophy. This was the same explanation that the beautiful Rita gave to the young Camillo on a Friday in November 1869, when he laughed at her for having gone the day before to consult a cartomante, a card reader. The difference was that she said it in different words.
Laugh, laugh. Men are always like this. You don't believe in anything. You should know that I went, and that she divined the motive of the consultation before I even told her what it was. She just started laying down the cards, and she said to me, "The lady likes someone." I confess that I did. And then she continued to lay down cards, arranging them, and finally declared that I was afraid you were going to leave me. But it wasn't true.
"She got that wrong," interrupted Camillo, laughing.
"Don't say that, Camillo. If you only knew how I've been suffering because of you. You know I've already told you. Don't laugh at me. Don't laugh."
Camillo took her by the hands and fixed his eyes on her in all seriousness. He swore that he wanted her very much and that her fears were childish. In any case, if she were ever afraid, the best card-reader would be himself. He then reprimanded her and said that it was imprudent to go to these houses. Villela could find out, and then—
"Find out how? I was careful going to the house."
"Where's the house?"
"Close by, on Guardavelli Street. No one was passing by at the time. Relax, I'm not daft."
Camillo laughed again. "You really believe in these things?" he asked her. It was then that she, unaware, translated Hamlet into the vernacular and told him that there were things mysterious in this world that were also true. If he didn't believe it, just wait. What's certain is that the cartomante had divined everything. What more could be said? The proof was that she was now calm and content. It seemed like he was going to say something, but held back. He didn't want to rip away her illusions. As a child, and for some time after, he too had been superstitious. He possessed an arsenal of superstitions that his mother had fortified him with, but these disappeared when he was 20 years old. On the day he let go of all that parasitic vegetation which left exposed only the barren trunk of religion, he bundled together both these teachings received from his mother into doubt, and thereafter into total negation. Camillo believed in nothing. Why? Well, he couldn't say why exactly. He possessed not one single argument, so he limited himself to negating everything, for want of a better word, because negating is still affirming, and he didn't formalize his disbelief. In the face of mystery, he was content simply to shrug his shoulders and move on. And so they parted contentedly, he still more than she. Rita was certain of being loved. Camillo was not only certain of it, but seeing how insecure she was, how she put herself at risk for him, running to card readers, and as much as he reprimanded her, he couldn't help but feel flattered by it. Their house of meeting was on Old Barbonos Street, where lived a woman who came from Rita's home province. Rita left by Mangueira Street in the direction of Botafogo, where she lived. Camillo left by Guardavelli, seeing on his way the house of the cartomante. Villela, Camillo, and Rita. 3 names, 1 adventure, and not one explanation of origin. Let's get to it. The first 2 of these were friends from childhood. Villela pursued the career of a magistrate. Camillo entered public service against the wishes of his father, who wanted him to be a doctor, but his father died, and Camillo preferred to be nothing at all, until his mother arranged for him a job as a public servant. At the beginning of 1869, Villela returned from the provinces, where he had met and married a lovely and carefree lady. He left the magistracy and came back to open a law office. Camillo found for him a house on the outskirts of Botafogo, and he boarded the ferry to meet them as they arrived.
"Ah, this must be the man,"
exclaimed Rita, extending out her hand.
"You can't imagine what a friend you are to my husband. He speaks of you non-stop."
Camillo and Villela looked at each other with affection. They were true friends. Afterward, Camillo confessed to himself that Villella's wife in person belied not one thing in the letters he got from her husband. Indeed, she was gracious and vibrant in her gestures, warm-eyed, with a mouth both fine and inquisitive. She was a little older than both of them. She was 30, Villela 29, and Camillo 26. However, the gravitas of Villella's comportment made him seem older than his wife, while Camillo was an ingenue in moral and practical life. There wasn't a trace of time on his face or behavior. He was like a baby beneath the lens of glasses, which only make him seem mature. Sans experience, sans intuition. The three bonded. Familiarity brought intimacy. Shortly after this, the mother of Camillo died, and in the disaster that befell him, the couple showed great friendship. Villela took care of the burial, the mourning, and the estate. Rita consoled his heart, and no one could have done it better. How they came to arrive at love, he never knew. The truth is that he liked passing the hours beside her. She was his nurse of morale, almost a sister, but principally a woman, and beautiful. The scent of a woman. That was it. What he breathed in from her and from everything around her inspired his body and soul. They read the same books, went to the theater together, went on walks. Camillo taught her checkers and chess, and they played in the evenings. She played poorly, but to be nice, he played a little more poorly still. You get the idea. Now let's consider the actions of the person. Like Rita's obstinate eyes, which searched his many times, which consulted his before her own husband's, her cold hands, her peculiar attitudes. One day, celebrating his birthday, Camillo received from Villela a fine walking stick as a present, and from Rita only a card with a common greeting written in pencil, and it was then that he was able to read his own heart. He couldn't tear his eyes away from the little card. Banal words, but there are banalities that are sublime, or at least delightful. The old covered carriage in which for the first time you toured the square with your lover, wrapped up in each other, was as magnificent as the chariot of Apollo. As the man is, so are the things that surround him. Camillo wanted sincerely to flee, but he just couldn't. Rita, like a serpent, circled around him, wrapped herself tight, crunched his bones with a spasm, and dripped venom into his mouth. He was stunned and subjugated, vexed, scared, remorseful, desirous, every feeling mixed together, but the battle was short and victory delirious. Adieu, scruples. It didn't take long for the shoe to fit the foot, and they were both soon going out together, arm in arm, stepping carefree over both grass and stone, suffering no more than some saudades when they were absent from one another. The confidence and esteem of Villela continued the same as it was. One day, however, Camillo received an anonymous letter which called him immoral and false, saying that the affair was known by everyone. Camillo was afraid, and in order to avoid suspicion began to cut back on his visits to the house of Villela, who noticed these absences. Camillo assured him that it was nothing more than a youthful dalliance. Candor turned into cunning. The absences became prolonged, and the visits ceased entirely. Perhaps there also entered into this a touch of self-love, an intention to diminish the husband's friendship in order to lessen the disloyalty of his actions. This was the time when Rita, insecure and fearful, rushed to that card reader to consult about the true cause of Camillo's absences. We've seen how the Cartomante restored her confidence and how the young man reprimanded her for having done what she did. Fast forward a few more weeks. Camillo receives 2 or 3 more impassioned anonymous letters which couldn't simply be moralizing about virtue, but the spite of a rival. This was the opinion of Rita, who, in words less well composed, formed this thought. Virtue is lazy and mean. It doesn't spend time even on paper. Only self-interest is active and reckless. Not even this made Camillo any more relaxed. He feared that the anonymous writer would have some contact with Villela, and then the catastrophe would come, and without remedy. Rita agreed it was possible.
"Okay," she said. "I'm going to take the envelopes in order to compare the handwriting with those of the letters that are delivered there. If any are the same, I'll separate them out and tear them up."
Nothing turned up. But from that time on, Villela began to appear somber, spoke little, as if suspicious. Rita hurried to tell Camillo, and they talked it over. Her opinion was that he should come back to the house and suss it out, and maybe even hear from him the confidence of some private business. Camillo disagreed. To appear after so many months would confirm suspicion or betrayal. best to err on the side of caution and forego visiting for some weeks. They then agreed on their means of correspondence, in case it was necessary, and they separated, tearfully. The next day at work, Camillo receives this note from Villela. "Come quickly at once to our house. I need to talk to you right away." This was just past midday. Camillo left soon after. In the street, he noted it would have been more natural to have him call at the office, so why at home? Everything indicated a special matter, and the handwriting, whether this was real or illusory, appeared to tremble. He conflated all these things with the news of the day before. "Come quickly at once to our house. I need to talk to you right away." He ran his eyes again over the paper. In his imagination, he saw the turning point of a drama. Rita subdued and crying, Villela indignant, taking pity and writing the note, certain of his accusation, and waiting to kill him. Camillo trembled with fear. After briefly turning yellow, and in every scenario the idea of retreating repugnant to him, he went on ahead. On the way it occurred to him to go home, and he might find some note from Rita that would explain everything. He found nothing, nor anyone. He returned to the street, and the idea of having been discovered seemed to him more and more plausible. An anonymous denunciation was natural, maybe even the very person who had denounced him earlier. It could be that Villela knew everything by now. With that suspending of his visits without apparent motive, it would take only a trivial pretext to confirm everything. Camillo moved ahead, restless and nervous. He didn't reread the note, but the words were suspended in front of his eyes, fixed there. Or then, which was still worse, they were murmured aloud in Villella's own voice. "Come quickly at once to our house. I need to talk to you right away." Spoken like this in the voice of the other man, the words had a tone of mystery and threat. "Come quickly at once." Why? It was close to 1 o'clock in the afternoon. His turmoil grew minute by minute. His imagination was so overwrought with what would happen, he came to believe that it was Villella's voice and saw him. He was completely afraid. He began contemplating whether he should go armed, considering that if it were nothing, nothing would be lost, and the precaution would be very useful. Very quickly he rejected the idea, vexed at himself, and followed with quick steps in the direction of the plaza of the Carioca in order to show up by cabriolet. As soon as he got there, he got in, ordering a vigorous trot. The sooner the better, he thought. I can't continue like this. The very trot itself came to aggravate his turmoil. The time flew, and he would not put off confronting the danger. Almost at the end of Guardavella Street, the cabriolet had to stop. The street was blocked by a wagon that had tipped over. Camillo calculated to himself the time it might take, and he waited. After 5 minutes, he noticed, to his side, to the right, next to the cabriolet, was the house of the Cartomante, whom Rita once consulted, and never before did he desire so much to believe in card-reading. He looked, saw the windows closed when all others around were open and full of people curious about the incident in the street. One might say it was the indifferent address of destiny. Camillo slunk down in the cabriolet so as not to see anything. His agitation was enormous, extraordinary, and out of the depths of all his layers of morale emerged spirits from another time. The old beliefs, the superstitions of yesteryear. The coachman proposed they go back to the first cross-street and continue by another route, but he said no, he would wait. He leaned forward to get a look at the house. Then he was moved by something unbelievable. It was the idea to consult the Cartomante, an idea which flew past in the distance far away, with grey wings. It disappeared, it reappeared, then turned to vapor in his brain, but made a little movement again of its grey wings, now closer, circling in gyres above him. In the street the men shouted, lifting the wagon. "Move! Now! Push! Go! Go!" In a few moments the obstacle would be removed. Camillo closed his eyes, thought of other things, but the voice of the husband whispered in his ears the words of the note. "Come quickly at once." And he saw the contortions of the drama and trembled. The house stared at him. His legs urged him to get out of the cabriolet and enter the house. Camillo found in front of him a long, opaque veil. He thought rapidly of the inexplicable in so many things. The voice of his mother repeated to him an earful of extraordinary cases, and the Prince of Denmark's phrase echoed inside of him. There are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy. What did he have to lose if... He made up his mind on the sidewalk. He told the driver to wait, crossed over through the corridor, and ascended the staircase. There was very little light. The steps had been gnawed away by feet, the railing sticky, but he neither saw nor felt anything. He mounted and knocked. No one appeared. He thought about going back down, but it was too late. The curiosity was coursing in his blood. His pulse was throbbing. He began to knock. 1, 2, 3 raps. A woman came to the door. It was the Cartomante. Camillo said that he'd like a consultation. She bid him enter. From there they ascended to the attic by an even worse staircase than the first one, and darker. Above there was a tiny room poorly lit by a single window facing the back roof. Old furnishings, somber walls, an air of poverty increased rather than diminished its authority. The Cartomante bid him sit at the table opposite her with his back toward the window in a way that very little light struck his face fully from the outside. She opened a drawer and took out a deck of oblong and dog-eared cards. As she rapidly shuffled them, she looked at him, not at his face, but beneath his eyes. She was a 40-year-old Italian woman, dark and thin, with big eyes, sharp and astute. She laid 3 cards on the table and said to him,
"We shall see first what brings you here. The gentleman has had a frightful shock."
Camillo nodded in amazement.
"And wants to know," she continued, "if something will happen to him or not."
"To me and to her," he explained energetically. The Cartomante did not smile. She told him only to wait. Quickly she picked up the cards again and shuffled them with her long, thin fingers. Her nails unmanicured, she shuffled them thoroughly. She cut the cards once, twice, 3 times, then began to spread them. Camillo's eyes were curious and anxious.
"The cards tell me."
Camillo leaned in to drink the words in, one by one. Then she told him he should not be afraid of anything. Nothing would happen to either one of them. He, the third party, knew nothing. Nevertheless, caution was indispensable. Jealousy and spite smolder. She told him of the love that connected them, the beauty of Rita. Camillo was dazzled. The Cartomante finished, gathered the cards, and closed them up in the drawer. "You've restored peace to my soul," he said, extending his hand across the table, squeezing the Cartomante's. She got up, laughing.
"Va," she said. "Va, ragazzo innamorato."
And on her feet, with her index finger, she touched him on the forehead. Camillo trembled as if it were the hand of the Sibyl herself, and stood up as well. The Cartomante went to the dresser, on which was a plate of raisins, took a cluster of them, began to pluck them off and eat them, exposing the 2 rows of teeth that had denied her proper fingernails. In this same common action, the woman had a particular air about her. Camillo, anxious to leave, didn't know how to pay, not knowing the price. "Raisins cost money," he finally said, taking out his wallet. "How much are you asking?"
"Direct that question to your heart," she replied.
Camillo took out a note of 10,000 reis and gave them to her. The eyes of the Cartomante dilated. The price was usually 2,000 reis.
"I see that the gentleman likes her very much.
and it's going well. She likes the gentleman very much. Go, go, rest assured. Watch the stairs. It's dark. Put on your hat.
The Cartomante had already put away the note in her pouch and descended with him, speaking in her light accent. Camillo gave his farewell at the landing, and then he descended the steps that connected to the street, while the Cartomante, joyful with the payment, went back upstairs, humming a barcarolle. Camillo found the cabriolet waiting for him. The street was wide open. He entered the cab and rode off in a vigorous trot. Everything seemed to him better now, and everything around brought out another aspect. The sky was clear and all the faces jovial. He came to laugh at his fears, which he considered puerile. He thought back to the terms Villela used and recognized that they were intimate and familiar. Where did he find the threat? They alerted him that it was urgent, and it was wrong for him to delay so long. It could be some serious business, and very grave. "Let's go, hurry!" he repeated to the coach driver. And to himself, in order to explain the delay to his friend, he invented a pretext. It seems he also formed a course of action, taking advantage of this incident to resume the old devotion toward his friend. As he revived his old plans, the words of the Cartomante echoed back to him. She actually did divine the object of the consultation, the state he was in, the existence of a third party. Why would she not divine the rest of it? The present that is ignored determines the future. It was like this, slowly and continuously, that the old superstitions of the young man resurfaced and seized him like bands of iron. At times he wanted to laugh, and laugh at himself, somewhat vexed, but the woman, the cards, the dry affirmations, the exhortation, va, va, ragazzo innamorato, and at the end, from a distance, the barcarolle of farewell, slow and graceful, such were the recent elements which formed with the old ones a new and living faith. The truth is that his heart became joyful and impatient, thinking of the happy hours of another time and those they had yet to come. Passing through the neighborhood of Gloria, Camillo looked out to sea, extending his vision far away, out to where the water and the sky were bound together in an infinite embrace, offering a sensation of the future, long, long, interminable. Not far from there he arrived at the house of Villela. He got out of the cab. He pushed the iron gate to the garden and entered. The house was silent. He went up 6 stone steps, and before he even had time to knock, the door opened, and Villela appeared to him. "Sorry I couldn't come earlier. What is it?" Villela didn't reply to him. The features of his face were discomposed. He made a gesture, and they went into a parlor. Entering, Camillo couldn't stifle his cry of terror. At the other end of the room, on the couch, was Rita, dead and covered in blood. Villela grabbed him by the collar, and with 2 revolver shots laid him out dead on the floor. The Card Reader by Machado de Assis, first published in 1884, translated from Portuguese for audio performance by Todd Conner, copyright 2019, with music from Lua Branca by Chiquinha Gonzaga from 1912. If you like this work and would like to support the Carryorker Podcast, please consider making a purchase at the Carryorker Podcast store at teespring.com. A direct link to the store is available on the Carryorker website at www.thecarryorker.com. Or if you'd like to make a donation, just click on the link below for PayPal, and always listen, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.